Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Why I Love Disney podcast. I'm Dustin. I'm here as always with my friends Easton and David. Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Man, I am doing fantastic. I just got back from a spring break trip. We took our group down to Universal Studios in Orlando and explored down there for a week or two. Had a blast. Cannot wait to tell you guys about it. Did you guys have a good week?
I did, but I'm excited to hear about yours. I think you had a little bit more excitement than I did. But man, there's a lot of parks news this week that was fun to follow. So.
Well, maybe we just merge it all together. I'll tell you a little about my trip as we talk about parks news. Let's hit parks news first, and I'll interject a little bit as we go. And if you guys have any questions for it too, let me know.
All right.
So let's go. What's the park news, David, that you're super excited about?
Well, it's more just trying to follow it. I'm not sure what I'm excited about because I don't know what is real and what is rumor, and it's probably a little bit of both. But there's been a lot of talk, since one of the 23 events where they teased the Beyond Big Thunder Mountain, and then it was all just concept art, and then all that kind of shifted over to Animal Kingdom. So, there's a strong feeling that that Central America area is coming to. I think they actually call it Tropical Americas is coming to Animal Kingdom, and they're going to have Encanto and possibly Coco in that mix. Along with a retheming of Dinosaur to Indiana Jones, but I was really kind of pumped that I thought it would be really cool to put Coco beyond Big Thunder Mountain because it flows. And the original concept for Disney World, they thought of that area all the way from Haunted Mansion all the way to Big Thunder Mountain as like you're going across the country. You're going from New York to Philadelphia to to the Midwest with the Tom Sawyer, to the frontier, all the way out west to California and the Big Thunder Mountain and the national parks kind of look. So a good extension would be to go to Mexico and add Coco back there. I think it would be a great addition. But I think things are a little complicated because they've dropped in Tiana's Bayou area in the middle of Frontierland, and so things are kind of like, well, wait a minute, what do we do with this? These things. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, and so there's been rumors for a good while that whole area where Pecos Bill's restaurant and the Country Bears, all of that could be converted to just New Orleans, and they just do away with the Frontierland completely. So, which I think, probably to some people that would be fine. There's really not a lot there. It's a lot of environment, like you're kind of immersed in that area. But it seems that more and more people are either disinterested in that area or, have bad feelings towards that area. There just seems to be a lot of, we've got to get rid of this. We've got to get rid of this.
Kind of political, a political nature, kind of that thing. It's just insensitive. People today's they're not comfortable with the frontiers and the cowboys and the Native American crossovers and things like that.
Yeah, even though when Disneyland was built, Frontierland was the biggest land. Yeah, and there were real Native Americans in the park, and you could go see Native American shows, and you could ride a stagecoach, you could ride a burro, there were just all these people were really into the Wild West, in the 50s. They loved cowboy movies, they loved westerns, and it was their past. They were like reconnecting with their great grandparents in a lot of ways, But I get that there's less interest in it, and I think part of it's because besides Woody, they've really not known what to do in that area. You got one toy that's a cowboy, and I had even thought that that would have been, they could have rethemed Splash Mountain to a Woody's Roundup with Stinky Pete chasing you down and trying to throw you over the. I mean, there's a lot of things they could have done, and they could have put the Country Bears in Splash Mountain. That could have been a really cool thing because they could have reinvented the whole thing, just moved them out, and could have been a Country Bear River Review. And you go hear all the same old songs, but in a new, in their den instead of in and a concert hall, and they could have converted that area. But I mean, they've kind of dug in and gone full into Tiana, so it looks like that's going to happen. But the big rumor that I just heard today, which there a couple of people have posted this, but Mickey Views posted it again. It's all rumor, but these guys have a lot of sources. And but the big news was that they need something to work with Big Thunder Mountain that matches its theme and its look. So now there's a big rumor that they're going to put cars, Radiator Springs, the attraction from California Adventure, that they could bring that over. It does look the same. It's the same color of mountains, the same type rocks. That they might put a Cars Land back there. Not a whole Cars Land. I think it's really just the Radiator Springs. There is rumored that there's a Woody. There is a Woody's attraction going back there, and then there's still big rumors that they're still going to do some villain area in the behind the Haunted Mansion. Apparently, there was been a rumor that there was a restaurant, a Haunted Mansion restaurant coming, and a lot of people think that's gone now. But that there definitely is a villains area where each E-ticket attraction and probably a D-ticket attraction would go in.
Can they do all of that though? Like everything you just said sounds awesome, and I've always been thought that that there's only so much land back there behind Big Thunder, and that's going to be a land, and I've always been partial to make it Villains Land. You know what I mean? That sounds amazing, but
there is land back there, but I guess they're calling it the big expansion in their history. And so a lot of people think for them to really do this, that the whole Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer will go.
Yeah.
That they'll take the whole thing out. Some people think they'll make the river smaller like they did at Disneyland, and basically the riverboat will go around Tom Sawyer Island in a smaller way. That half of Tom Sawyer's Island will go. But then there are other people think the whole thing will go, that it could just be a water feature where the riverboat just sits there. The riverboat has to get out. There's a waterway that connects that inner part of Frontierland with waterways outside of the park where they can actually get the boat out to do maintenance and things like that. And so if they shut off its way to get out, it can't get out. So
let me ask you this: how popular do you think Tom Sawyer's Island still is? Let me ask you: when you go to the park, do you visit it now?
If I twist everybody's arm and make them go.
No one wants to do that, And again, I've always sort of liked it as kind of a neat little, But I was a Florida resident. I never felt like I was losing something. Everything's opportunity cost, right? You only have so much time in the park, and I learned that this week when we were at Universal Studios. Is if you're gonna stand in line for a ride or an attraction, you can't. You're taking your time away that you could be at somewhere else. And I always felt like, as a Florida resident, I'd love to go hang out at Tom Sawyer. When I had little kids that couldn't do a lot of rides, just to let them run and roam and explore, it was kind of cool. But you're waiting in line to get over. You got to wait in line to come back. It's always like it's never a quick little trip over, right?
Right. But it's not the longest lines that you're going to stand in for sure. So it's really not usually very hard to get on the raft, get over there. Once you're there, if you've got smaller kids, even elementary kids, there's lots to run around and do. The caves to explore, the tunnels. There's lots to do, and so
it kind of reminds me of they have a little called Camp Jurassic at Jurassic Park at Universal. It kind of it's not on an island. You don't have to take a raft to get there, but it's a little like playground area, immersive playground area for kids. And I've always kind of felt like that's their kind of Tom Sawyer Island, just themed around dinosaurs.
Well, and it's a property to me that I grew up. There were Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn stories on everything. There were just mini movies about it. There were TV shows about it. Even Disney had a Tom Sawyer movie that had Tobey Maguire in it. They had the Tom and Huck movies with the guys from Home Improvement, I think, were in it. So they've done a lot, but it's just in the past 10 years, 15 years, they just haven't. They haven't. It's like we've talked about before, like even E.T. Over at Universal Parks. You've got a property like that it starts to look old because no one has said, how do we keep this character relevant to this audience? What can we be doing to for people to still love this? How can we make another
Right.
great movie with this character that has the same feel and the heart of the first movie? And so I think that's the big problem. I think it would be weird to see something like the riverboat leave. That it just feels like such an iconic part of that area. Even if you don't ride the riverboat or go over to Tom Sawyer's Island, there's something about the feel, the water. It's the immersiveness of it's kind of what sets Disney to me apart from like Universal, where you definitely have immersive areas like the Harry Potter area, but when you're in Frontierland or Adventureland, you just kind of have that feel like I've stepped into another environment,
It's true, and I
not
think
not
another
one of my
difference.
own.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think another difference with Disney, we were talking about this right before we came online here, um, is the immersion that Disney does is not based necessarily on an IP, and I don't feel like they have to I guess they're not chained to it, right? And in
right,
fact, the Disney purist, Walt was more interested, it seems to me, in creating. You're walking into a new into the West. You're
right,
walking into the adventure land, right? You're walking into a fantasy world. We're creating a world, and within that, there can be IP and properties that you'll maybe recognize. But Disney's always also they were the first to do this, so they're creating IP from these lands, right? That then
right.
in turn becomes movies. Where Universal is the exact opposite. Everything in Universal starts at the top of their top box Universal top box office movies. You go right
Right.
down the list, and that's the attractions that Universal has. And if one
Hmm.
goes up and gets to the top 10, that's you can bet it's getting an attraction, and the one that's coming out is the one that is the most irrelevant. And that into I feel like Universal, because it's newer, is a little less like trapped by history, right? Trapped by the
Right.
purists. Whereas Disney, like, I can just hear it in your voice, the idea that they could get rid of the riverboat and Tom Sawyer Island, you know, and even that's a big deal and something you'd
Right.
be giving up. You talked about iconic, right?
Well, I think that the thing is like we talked about before we came on. We talked about how Universal gave up Jaws, the Jaws attraction. That was a lot of. I mean, that was some people's favorite thing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's people that's their favorite movie. They love going and riding that ride and remembering that story. And but it goes for Harry Potter. The thing is, they definitely build something better,
Right.
something that it's hard to it would be very hard to say, man, I would give all of this whole Harry Potter area up for one attraction.
Yep.
So if they do something that's so good that
Well,
people will move on, but it's still
maybe
it's a big cultural thing. I mean,
it
there's still
is a
people
culture
that are.
thing. You're
Yeah,
right.
there's still people upset that they took out Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and
That's
Magic
me.
Kingdom for
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
it made
and
total
and
sense. Like, that was smart.
right. But now now you don't really see. There was a season where Disney was putting everything in Winnie the Pooh.
Yep.
They were making multiple Tigger movie, Piglet movies, Christopher
Hmm.
Robin movies. They were TV shows. They were just pump, and then now they're not. So
Yeah.
now you look at it and you go, wow, they gave up that thing for that thing, and now that's not even doing that well. I mean,
But would you agree
it
that
still has stabilized.
Disney
But
doesn't have a culture of like replacing property with new property? They more like build on or add something. It's very rare that okay, Mr. Toad's going, Winnie the Pooh's coming, right?
right,
Universal from day one, like within 10 years, they're out with this, in with this. I mean, I was always
right,
upset they got rid of Back to the Future, one of my
right,
favorite movies of all time, and really too soon, in my opinion, that you had all the anniversaries coming up, and you had 3 movies, and yet they tear the whole thing down so they can make a whole Springfield with the Simpsons, which, by the way, is also awesome, right?
right.
And now
Yeah,
they're getting rid of Springfield to add in a whole Pokemon land, which doesn't resonate with me as much. But when I told my kids that, who are kind of like old souls in the sense that they enjoy The Simpsons, all of them, I'll tell you, we spent a lot of time in Springfield this time. But when I
wow.
told them Pokemon is coming in, they're like, oh, that could be cool, you know.
Yeah,
So but Universal's always like, we'll get rid of this and we're putting in this. You'll like this better. And when that becomes the culture and your fans get used to that, it's less of a shock, right? When we're getting
right,
rid of Splash Mountain to make Tiana's Bayou Adventure, or we're going to rebrand Thunder Mountain around cars, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're going to do that, but those sorts of things to purists are like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
I think one other thing about Disney is they'll say things like, "Well, we're not a museum. We are, we're constantly evolving," but in a way they are. That's the tough thing. Is like a
Yep.
lot of things Disney did. That's the first.
Right. You're
Like it
exactly
was
right.
really before Universal. So you go in and if they said, "Hey, we're going to take out Enchanted Tiki Room," it doesn't have a huge audience, but it was the first animatronic show. So
Yeah.
it is in a way like a historical thing. Hall of Presidents, like there's never been
Yeah.
anything like it. If you take it out, it's like. So anyway, I just think
No,
those
but
are
Disney
things what you
also
want to. You want to see
I'm
them
sorry.
figure out how to make a crowd love it more.
That's true, but they do. So that's what the River Cruise. They make a movie out of it. Pirates of the Caribbean. They go make a movie. They make IP around these rides, and I think that's what Disney's done. They're so iconic that these rides that were created. Even if they were loosely based on some legend or something like that, they go and they make some $1 billion, or huge. Put The Rock in a movie with the Jungle Cruise, or put Johnny Depp as this pirate that's Pirates of the Caribbean, and all of a sudden now you can never get rid of these rides. You've made them
Yeah.
more iconic, and I think that's actually an incredible testament to Walt Disney and what they did. Is that these things
Yeah.
are so iconic that you can work backwards from that. Where Universal is like, hey, we make movies, and now you can experience the movie we made, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
That's
fast.
exactly.
I think the difference is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't. I know they're direct competitors because they're competing for people's vacation money, and even at the studio and the box office, they're competing with our eyeballs and our attention. But they do approach it differently, and I do appreciate it. I really do truly like both of them for different reasons. Um,
Right.
and so, yeah, I think this is I love talking about these things. To be perfectly
Well,
honest with you.
also think it still goes back to that original concept of what Walt Disney, how he designed what a theme park should be, how you get lost, how you get immersed. And when you asked me in one of the recent podcasts about like, what was my favorite, what thing Disney thing I was looking most forward to in 2024, it would be what Universal's doing, because I do think that's an extension of what was started years ago in this whole process of how do we keep making better things and new environments and new parks, new attractions, and they're doing great things. I think that Disney's in a place now where they've got to be doing some things to keep up. This idea that we've known there were rumors around that we've known that Epic Universe is coming for 10 years. That's why we added Cosmic Rewind and Ratatouille Adventure and Pandora and Avatar and but I don't think that really holds well, because I think Universal's added Hagrid's, Universal's added Velocicoaster. They've added a lot of things too, and so I think Disney really has to get moving. I'm probably one of the few people that when I listen to things online, I don't want another park yet. I think that they've got to maximize the 4 parks that they have, and the reason I think that is that you, as a family, you the most have a week to go, and another gate is like, now how am I going to do that? How am I going to have another whole day to go to another whole park? I feel like if you added a park, it would hurt a park.
Yeah.
And that what they need to do is get more things that everybody wants to do in each park. So I do think, man, if they Radiator Springs, the attraction and the Cars attraction, if they bring that over, that is one of the best. It is one of and the Indiana Jones ride, if they bring that to Animal Kingdom, that is one of the best. Even if it's not exactly the same, those are great. Those are great attractions. I don't think it's the most creative thing to bring something from one to another, because a lot of people do go to both parks. So now it's like, oh, I always got the same thing at both, but it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to bring something from one park to another than to create something new. So anyway, those are kind of the things that were going around, and the whole past week there's just been a lot of speculation of why these announcements. I think a lot of it probably has to do with stock stock prices have been dropping, so they've got to put out all this information, hopefully to get people excited. Maybe that's it. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they follow through. There's been so much blue sky talk that I'm not sure people know what to think and what's real and what's smoke and mirrors and what's really concrete news. But it's a lot to think about, and I think you, as a fan, you just gotta kind of prepare yourself. Like, nothing lasts forever. Things change. You gotta, things move on. And there were times where things have left Disneyland, and you just have to say goodbye and know that something else will come that you'll fall in love with, hopefully too. So.
No, absolutely.
So tell us about your trip. I mean, what were your 5 favorite things on this Universal Parks trip?
Well, my kids your kids get older, you see them experience things a little bit differently, and that's always fun to watch. They're riding a few more roller coasters and really having a blast with their friends. And but I still think, man, Hagrid's my last trip, it was such a long wait. I think I only got to ride it one time. But this time we perfected the single rider queue, and also the last minute. The big tip is, if you're in line at the minute the park closes, you're in line, right? And they honored that at Disney both and Universal. So we did that twice with Hagrid's, and I think I rode Hagrid's a total of 3 times this trip, and it's that good, man. It's my favorite roller coaster. It's just so much fun. Also rode Velocicoaster again, and man, I think that might be, as far as just take your breath away, maybe the top thrill roller coaster I've ever ridden. And I'll say, I'm not like a roller coaster, like I'm not a guy who's like making a bucket list of roller coasters to go visit around the world. But I do like them. I like less the ones that I get a headache on when I'm off. So I did not ride Hulk or the Rip Ride It roller coaster. My kids did, but I did not. I was the bag holder for those, because I know those are just big, loud, angry roller coasters that I'm gonna be woozy when I get off. And I moved past that. I've done them before, right? I'm happy with my kids experiencing that. I did get in line for Hulk one time, but for something happened and I had to leave and go do something else. So but yeah, I love those 2 rides in particular.
What's the not the Hulk, the other one, the Rip, what's that one called?
Rip Ride Rocket.
Yeah, that's one of the few that I've not ridden, but I've heard it's rough. But that's the one the music changes on.
You get to pick your music. You have like a library, and you pick your song.
There are hidden songs that like you can find out about online, and you can
I did not know that.
I don't know what they all are, but there are hidden songs that you have to know how to program them in somehow. But
outside of Seuss Land, I think we just about rode every single thing there that you can ride. We didn't see every show either, but we had a blast. And I will tell you a little queue tip too. Men in Black. If you single ride queue that, it's basically, we walked on it about 12 times over the course of the few days. And the cool thing about those, anything, and Gringotts is the same way, is single riders open because they're like there's 12 people or multiple. You oftentimes are in the same cart with the people that you're single riding with anyway. Hagrid's is a little different because it's a double rider. But anything that has like 4 or 5 people in a row, and then another few rows, you're likely to be in the same cart. So we did that with the Mummy. Almost walked on with that. That was my first time ever riding the Mummy, Revenge of the Mummy, because it was closed for refurbishment last time we were there.
Right. That's a great ride.
Yeah, I was surprised. I'd never done it. I didn't know what to expect, and it was really cool. All the effects and all that as well. But
That's
but
really
yeah,
good. we go ahead.
We did the new Villain Con blast thing too. They have a whole Minions land now. When you first walk in the park, they now have an entire. It's a whole section of the park before you get to New York and the Jimmy Fallon ride. You go through Minions Land, and you have the Minion Mayhem That's
Hmm.
the old. It used to be. What's funny is I'm old enough now that I'm walking through with my kids and the people that we're with, and I'm telling this used to be. I'm kind of like you are with Disney ride. That used to be originally it was Hanna-Barbera, and you would do a movie ride with the Simpsons and the Jetsons were all involved in this big ride, and that was all. I used to love it. I used to absolutely love it. Then it was it's been a couple other things, but now it's the Minions, and it used to be 3D. Now it's 2D. I think that's a great move. I had less of a headache on it. Um, but they have a new attraction called Villain Con, which is unique. Have you heard about this? Have you read about it?
I've watched people do it online. Yeah.
So it's like imagine like a laser tag kind of thing. You walk in this line, this queue, and you're on a conveyor belt. You stand up through it, and you ride. You have to stand on a dot, and you just sort of it's kind of people. It kind of moves you through like all these rooms, and you see these screens, and you have a gun, and you shoot targets on the gun, all the villains, right? But the really cool thing is, get this: you in the Universal app, there's a thing you push, and you can make an account and you can actually sync to your gun. And there's a whole scavenger hunt thing you can do throughout Minions Land to get points and find secret items and new skins for your gun. You can customize your weapon, like you can do like a firework or a fart blaster, or you have like 4 different things. It's so cool. Like it's a video game ride basically. That's
Right.
and more than Men in Black. Men in Black, you're you know how that is. You're shooting an old school laser at a target and hopefully hearing the tactical feedback, but you're actually like have complete customization of this like this cannon, this blaster thing you get to hold. And man, that was so cool. And it actually was a glimpse of the future of what theme parks could be.
Is it moving? When I've watched it online, I'm like, how do you keep from like just getting a little disoriented because you're doing that, the floor's moving. Like I mean, is it moving so slowly that you don't feel it, or?
Now, you feel it, but you kind of like when you're moving from room to room and you're still shooting one thing, you want to keep moving into you can walk this thing too, so it's not very fast, but it just sort of moves slow enough. It really works really well. I never felt like I was gonna fall or you know anything like that. It just sort of you're in the next room now, and
But it would be if the conveyor belt ever stops, it's going to be
actually
interesting.
Actually, if it does though, then you get more time in the room to keep nailing
that's true.
targets because you
If
really
you don't
are.
fall
You're
down.
focused. You're focused on like, and it's moving slow enough. This is for kids, right? It's not
Right.
like a intense ride, but it's really cool how they do it. Like you can follow your friends on the app. You can compare scores. There's a universal scoreboard, of all time and who's in there right now. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You can choose your avatar skin for your thing. Like just think like a really elaborate video game ride, and that's
Right.
what it is. I think it's really cool.
A couple of months back, I think it was Disney released that video of one of their Imagineers who's created that new floor that you can walk
Yes.
in place on. I thought of that ride in particular when I thought of that. It's like, man, that would be the next level. Now they don't even need a conveyor belt because you can put on your glasses and just walk in place,
Yep.
and the
And
floor
it's in the
moves like you're.
and if you remember David, I don't know if you remember, it's in the old Alfred Hitchcock building. That used to be a theater where. Did you ever do the Alfred Hitchcock experience?
No.
Okay, that's in a so I was going through
I didn't
all
know
the
they
original.
had that in Florida.
Yep,
I didn't
they
know
did.
that. I mean, I know they've had the house out in California, but I didn't know they had. That's
It used to
something-
be like a show. You go and you watch, and they show you how they do all these movie effects from Psycho and The Birds and things like that, and they pull people out of the audience. One of them does the thunder. One of them, doing all sorts. You're doing the effects, right? And it was
Yes.
actually kind of cool, but. I can totally see how, and again, what Universal does. Who of these kids know who Alfred Hitchcock is? Get rid of that. Put in the Villain Con. And it's been gone for a long time, by the way. It's
Right.
not like
I know what you're talking about now, but Disney had they had the Monster Sound Show at Hollywood Studios, which was Disney MGM Studios back in the day, and I got to go. My wife and I went there when it first opened, and we were in that show where we had to do the sound effects for.
Yeah, that's cool.
I had to do like Martin Short's voice. He was like some character. He was like the Mad Igor, and I think it was Chevy Chase was in it. I had to do their voices, and Susan had to break glass when like a chandelier fell or something like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And there was also a Murder She Wrote attraction.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, that tells you how like what they were targeting in when they opened in the early '90s.
Well, they were those parks were very much like being immersed in the making of movies, not.
Yes.
And now people have gone from like, I don't care how they're made, I want to.
Well, and
I
again,
just want
like
to.
all that land where the Rip Ride Rocket is now, there's like a corporate event center that also used to be Nickelodeon Studios. They used to
Yeah,
film all the Nickelodeon game shows there, right?
exactly.
And some
I
of the
do remember
TV shows.
that.
Because I remember when I was a kid, you watched Double Dare and you're like, filmed at Universal Studios, Florida, and that was oh, we're gonna go to Nickelodeon Studios and get slimed, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was all right there too. So it's always again another example of how they just turn stuff over so fast for their top properties. So, but that villain
It
con
is
thing is really cool.
It's interesting that both the Disney and the Universal Park have changed that. I mean, I think Universal still has a little bit of presence, more of it than Disney does, because now it's just. I mean, again, Harry Potter's changed everything because people want that feeling of it. But there are not many stories like Harry that have such an expansive uh, environment to be in. You know, I mean,
Yep.
some, even great movies, their environments aren't always so big.
Well, and this is the thing I love about
So
the ones that you can, they've done. You got Jurassic Park that now is a
right,
huge. You walk into the gates. There's they have a big boat ride, the River Adventure. They have the Pterodon flyers for the kids ride. They have the Camp Jurassic, which is the Tom Sawyer Island sort of playground for the kids. It's huge and immersive with caves and zip lines and stuff like that. Then they have Velocicoaster, and then they
right.
have there's just a lot there to do. And then the
Well,
restaurants.
and you can go meet and greets with the Raptor or whatever. Did you do that? I
The
think take
Raptor,
the
I did
guys over
not.
there.
I didn't do the meet and greet with the Raptor, but there all sorts of like photo ops. I mean, even the food. My son Soren, he texted me a picture of ribs and chicken. I'm like, how much did I just pay for this? But he said the food at Jurassic Park is amazing, and
Yeah,
so much so that he'd comment about it. So
yeah,
that
that's
little
good.
tip there. The food's really good
It
over there.
it is fun when everybody is enjoying the food, and I think that's one of the great things about all the theme parks is you go when they're kindergarten, first, second grade. You go back when they're like older elementary, middle school, high school. It changes every time you go because you're seeing everything from their perspective.
Yep.
And I do think that's I do think it's nice when they have areas that are designed for kids because sometimes when you go there doesn't seem to be enough that's really to do with kids because of the height requirements. There's so many things they can't do.
Right.
So, did
It,
you do those? Did you do the flyers? Did you do the?
We did it last time.
Okay.
With one of my kids wanted to do it, and it was late at night, and everybody else was riding Velocicoaster, and he wasn't going to do it. So we went on that. But here's the thing about the Pterodon flyers. Little tip. That line is one of the slowest moving lines in the park because of the way it's set up. And so when it's 90 minutes for a little kids thing around, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we did not do it this time.
But that's one of the few attractions that you have to be a kid or be with a kid.
Yep.
Everybody can't ride it, or it would be 4 hours.
Absolutely. For kids, they actually, so that's another thing too. You talked about they're building the other park, the Epic Universe, of course, but they're still expanding. You've got, for kids, you now have the Camp Jurassic. You have the whole Dr. Seuss land, which is still pretty well done. It's really immersive. I actually here's another thing. I got green eggs and ham for breakfast one day. I got the whole, it's, a tater tot base, hash brown base, green eggs, then cheese and ham on top.
That area that usually wins like rankings. That whole
Yeah,
that area
it's pretty cool.
that place where you get green eggs and ham usually ranks really high on public, favorites.
Yeah, I mean, and you think that like for little kids, well, Disney's obviously the place you go for little kids, but then you have the Minion stuff. That's pretty significant. Then they're also building right next to ET the whole DreamWorks section now. You forget you have Kung Fu Panda, you have Shrek still, you have what are the what's the other ones that I'm forgetting? There's like
Trolls.
Trolls. Oh yeah, all that Trolls. All that is going to go in there, and they're building a whole new, kids where there used to be like Woody Woodpecker and stuff like that. That's all becoming the DreamWorks section where all these animated movies will be. And And that's
Yeah.
that's going to be significant too. It's right next to ET, which this is what I want. The one thing I wanted to throw in there. I was kind of an old school guy, like don't get rid of ET. It's the last original attraction, but it's time for ET to go. I'm sorry to say, um, the line goes too slow. It's one of those things where you go in, you watch a video. The video you watch is Steven Spielberg, telling about the movie. Steven Spielberg looks like he's 35 years old. It's 4:3 ratio. You might as well be watching on like a CRT, TV. You know what I mean? You go in there,
Right.
it takes way too long. And then my kids have no idea who this character. My older kids do, but most of the people in our group were like, "What the heck is this?" I'm like, "Trust me, it's kind of cool, whatever." And we get done like, "What was that?"
Yeah.
So no connection to it whatsoever. So it's time for I think it's time for them to let go of the ET and move on from that.
Well, that attraction is strange too because it's beyond being immersive in the movie. It's like, hey, ET's gonna go home and you're gonna see things you've not seen before. So
Yeah,
a lot of people are like, "What is this?"
yeah, it has nothing to do with the movie really, and they give you that card to try to say your name. It never works, like, so it's time. I think it's time to move on from ET. I really do. So
Well, is that and that's near Simpsons area, right?
yeah, it's right up close in front. Yeah, right close to
It,
Simpsons area.
it could all go to Pokemon too. We'll have to wait and see what happens there.
Or it's also, all that DreamWorks stuff is over there right next to it. Like it's butted up. You could do something with that as well. I also think it's curious in Islands of Adventure, you still have the Marvel part, the comic book Marvel part. That's still really great. But the old school cartoon part where you have like Dagwood and Beetle Bailey. Do you even know who these people are, Easton, that I just said?
Nope.
Dagwood and Beetle Bailey?
No, I don't.
Yeah, see? Like, it's like old school comic strip, Family Circus. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
See? I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Dr. Doolittle, you ever heard of him?
I know who Dr. Doolittle is.
Okay, yeah. So you got this
Yeah,
whole
but
section.
he knows the Eddie Murphy Dr. Doolittle.
Oh, that's a good point. But that's what you see what I'm saying? Like, you have this whole section of the park, and actually Lost Continent, they just closed down the Poseidon's Fury. There's two sections in Islands of Adventure that I think are ripe for a complete redo anyway.
Well, that area there's a strong rumor that it's going to be Zelda.
Ooh, that could be awesome.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That could be really cool. Get a Nintendo presence in there.
I do think you're going to see a lot of gaming come. I mean, Pokemon is a huge brand. And see, I think the thing about Mario and Pokemon and the whole Donkey Kong, all those things are almost more immersive than a lot of the movies. The movies, like, again, Harry Potter created such a place that people were like, oh, I want to go there so bad.
Yeah.
And Star Wars is like that, but Star Wars has so many places and sets, and I really think where they messed up in Star Wars is they did not let you get into the most iconic movies.
You're right.
They created something new, and I don't think people want new. It'd be like if they created Harry Potter and said, now we're going to go to Harry Potter, but in this Potter, Harry's 50. And this is the next generation. And people would be like, I don't want to go to the next generation. I want to see Dumbledore, and I want to hear Harry's voice. And so they were very smart to keep that right in the sweet spot that everybody loved. And but I do think that those video games are the frontier of. People have spent so much time in those games and in those environments to step into them in real life is probably what more people under 30 want than just to step into Moana or Coco.
When you go do VillainCon, you get a sense of this is the future. Whether it's with your phone or with some sort of, even the wands, they've made an announcement now, they're redoing the whole wand thing with a new technology. And you can only imagine that it's going to be, somehow way more immersive than just like a light thing. And it probably has to do with an app and tracking and all sorts of things like that. And maybe a game system where you keep score and, man, just anything to keep your attention a little bit more. They'll be on that. So, overall, man, it was we had a blast. I did get I had an experience I've never had before too. You've heard me talk about how Volcano Bay is one of my favorite water parks of all of them. Aquatica at SeaWorld is also an incredible water park. I know Disney, Blizzard Beach, those are great water parks also. But the day we were going to the water park, I guess, the next day, it's always when you plan your vacation out, you look at the weather, you're like, oh, it's going to rain on Wednesday. So we should probably go to the water park on Tuesday while the weather's good. Well, everyone else had that idea as well. And I dropped all of the group I was with off. Ran the shuttle right for them. That was going to be nice. And our hotel was within walking distance, but Volcano Bay is a little different. You got to get on a shuttle to get there. There's no way to get there. You can't hardly walk to it. So I dropped one group off, went and got another group, dropped that group off, went and parked it back at the hotel, and it's about a mile walk, to get there. I get there, big sign up there. Volcano Bay is closed due to full capacity. So my whole group got to go to Volcano Bay. I got to hang out in City Walk. I waited a few hours seeing if it would open. It never did.
I really can't believe that. That really was a shocker to me. And had you bought a ticket already?
Well, we had the multi-day park hoppers, so I could have gone any day, in and out, of course. But it's such a hassle to get there, and you're with a group. You kind of have to plan on it.
But did you go up and even say, "But my wife and kids are in there"?
No, because it's such a you would have had to get on the shuttle, right? And have them take you there, which they weren't really running to anymore. And then once you get to the gate, you have to tell them at the gate, please let me. So I don't want to do that 3 or 4 times and try to do that. I probably could have talked my way into it, but I didn't.
I wish you just had so we would know.
Yeah.
Because when you first told me that, I was like, that's horrible. That's horrible customer service. Now I can understand if your group shows up at that point, like, sorry folks, we're closed, you got to go do something else. But if your whole family is in that park, even if they said, okay, we'll let you in, but you got to sit on all you can do is watch.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To their credit, I didn't try.
Okay.
I honestly thought it was already like 11. I'd already walked in. I was already kind of late. So I was like, well, I'll hang out in City Walk. I went to the I love that place, Cowfish. It was an opportunity to go get some sushi there. Burger sushi, right? Is that fusion thing? And so I ate lunch, and then I'm like, well, it'll be open now, and it still wasn't open. So about 2 o'clock, I sort of gave up, and then realized that they're going to be wanting to come back, in the next hour or two, and I got to shuttle everybody back too. So I was the nice guy that just went and shuttled everybody that day.
Well, you got some good food, and sushi's always a good resort when everything falls apart. Just go get good food.
That's right. And I did talk the rest of my 2 youngest kids into going back to the park with me later that night. And that was the night we did Hagrid's at the very end. And we actually, did I tell you about this? So it's rainy. I'm sorry, that's wrong. We did Hagrid's at the very end. We got on, had a blast. The next night we did it again, and it started raining and lightning while we're in line. And we were literally about to get on, and they canceled the ride about 10 p.m. and they gave us express passes for the next day to go anytime we wanted to. So that was a nice little token on their part.
That's really nice. When we were at Disneyland in the fall, a couple of times things like that happened, and they didn't do anything.
Really, you
had invested all that time, and then it started. Things either broke down. We had a couple experiences. I was really shocked. It was like, man, this doesn't feel right. Like, I don't think this is the way it used to be. I think that in the past they would have said, hey guys, here's a. No, we were. I can't remember one of the things we had stood in line for very long, and they just suddenly said we're closed, and people were angry because people were about to get on. So
yeah, well, I think the difference was we were at the end of the day. It was 10 o'clock. The park had already closed. It was that sort of thing. So it wasn't just like we just waited out, but they were like, yeah. And there wasn't a lot of us left. Like, that's another thing, too, is like we're closing it down. Right. And then we walked back and soaking pouring rain. So, but it was Florida rain. It's not too cold. It's fine. I enjoy it.
Well, man, I'm glad you guys had a good time and a lot of good experiences and good food and
great food. Had a blast. Looking forward to going back sometime, see Epic Universe next year too. Maybe we could all do a trip together and figure out that.
I like that.
I think you should schedule another trip for the fall.
We'll do it. Well,
a fall break.
That could be great. Could be great.
I think it's time to say goodbye.
Peter, darling.
We are still round 3, the Sweet 16 of our villains bracket. Do you guys want to knock this out? You guys want to see if we can do this?
I think we should,
go for it.
especially in the light that all of the villains land rumors going around this week and people speculating what villains would be in a Disney villains land. So I did hear, we did talk about this before. I did hear a rumor that something about Chernobog up on a mountain. So we'll see.
Ooh, Chernobog on a mountain. Scary. All right. Well, Easton, we've done most of the talking because we're talking Beetle Bailey and Dagwood and old cartoons. So why don't you take over now and lead us through this Sweet 16 matchups we're in?
So our first matchup here of our Sweet 16 is going to be our number 1 seed going up against our number 5 seed, and that is Sid Phillips as the 1 up against Jafar as the 5.
Well, this was easier for me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick Jafar for just power and menacingness and evilness. It's got to be Jafar and just the power, the magic. It's a easy one for me. He will be in Villains Land. Sid will not be. I don't think
That's a great point.
So actually though, Sid did at Oogie Boogie's Bash at Disneyland. They did add Sid. You could go do a meet and greet with Sid now. So
that's cool.
He is there. So you could see him in Villains Land actually, but Jafar will be there.
I'm also voting Jafar. You're right. I do like Sid. I think he's a great villain, but Jafar, I'm with you.
No, I second both of you guys. I'm also with Jafar. You're right. He absolutely will be
Jafar
there.
moving to the Elite 8. Yeah.
He's in there. Next up is our 3 against our 7, and that is the Evil Queen going up against Ursula.
This is a hard one because they're both going to be in Villains Land.
Yeah, totally.
So
We're to the who's who of villains now at this point. They're all good. There's going to be some terrible matchups. David, David, why don't you? I'd love you to make the case. It's very important that you go first on this one so that we get the framework.
Well, actually, I think this is what makes this so tough is that for a lot of kids, the Evil Queen, she was the most terrifying thing they'd seen on the screen. If you grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, it was still pretty scary. But for a lot of kids that grew up in the 90s, 10s, Ursula was one of the scariest things you saw on the screen. So, they're both pretty terrifying in the movies. My nostalgia would be to give it to the Evil Queen. I think she's not comedic. She's pure terror. She's murderous. She's vain. Ursula a little bit more has the comedy edge to her, even though she's terrifying. She, grows to a ginormous size at the end, and I think giant monsters are scarier than normal size monsters. So she wins in that one. But I'm gonna go. Either one of these can go through, and I think it's valid. So I'm gonna pick Evil Queen and see what you guys pick.
Wow. Do you have a strong opinion, Easton, on this? Or are you torn?
I'm a little torn, but when I think about each of them, I feel like a trait that is a little bit more, I struggle to find the right word. I'm going to use the word menacing, but that's not really what I'm looking for. Of the two, I think that being able to talk someone and manipulate someone into a scam that you kind of feel like you're pretty confident you're going to win out of is a little more menacing, evil. I still don't know what the right word is, but for that reason, I think I'm going to vote for Ursula and just put it on you to make.
It's really interesting. I'm going to try to frame this, and you guys tell me if you think I'm wrong. So Ursula is more a little bit conniving in the sense that she is leveraging something that Ariel wants, right? Like desires, and playing on that to get something, extract something from her, right? It's an exchange that's taking place that she knows she's going to get the best of in the end.
Devilish.
It's devilish, right? But the Evil Queen is looking at someone completely innocent and saying she must die, right? So she's in my way. Like I mean, they've never met, right? It's just this innocent little girl that she is threatened by, and she's going to kill her. Both of those are super. You see what I'm saying? Like it. While Ursula seems a little more like diabolical, the evil queen seems more pure evil.
Yeah, and she is the stepmother. She is Snow White's stepmother.
Oh wait, hold on. I'm confused. I get Cinderella's and my Snow White's confused. My bad.
Yeah, but they don't say that. They don't say it in the movie. It gets cut out in the original story, I think. But even in if you had it in the day when there were Disney storybooks, she was the queen, the king's daughter, and then the king. But you don't see that because he's gone, like Cinderella.
Gotcha.
But she's the original stepmother too. They just don't call her that.
Okay. And there's so many versions of this story, through. But still, she's gonna kill her, whether or not. Yeah. I mean,
it's even. I think it's even a level up that if you're gonna kill her and she's the daughter of but a lot of people think she killed Snow White's dad probably too. So,
wow.
Who knows? To get it, to be all powerful, she may have knocked him off too.
Well, when we first started this, I thought I'm gonna pick Ursula and I'm gonna let Easton decide. But since we went this way, I think I'm gonna go with Evil Queen. I think the pure evil comes over of wanting to kill someone. I could go Ursula the two though. Ursula is a great villain. I'm disappointed she's going out in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, no, that's
a tough
totally
one.
fair.
It is a tough
Totally fair.
It sets up a great
This
matchup.
next one's tough.
Yeah.
This one.
Here comes our next one here. It's our 8 seed against our 4 seed. We have the Headless Horseman going up against Chernobog.
I love Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. I love Headless Horseman. It's actually way more nostalgic to me than Fantasia. Fantasia was a hard movie in my era growing up. It was just hard to see unless you caught it at the theater. It was one of the last things that was actually to DVD and Blu-ray and things like that. But as an adult, man, and a history buff, there's so much in Fantasia that you can just get lost in. Way more history that's written about that than the Headless Horseman. But I guess for sheer power, and here's the crazy thing: if you ran into either one of these, he would be completely terrified.
Oh yeah.
But I guess I gotta put Chernobog through. I guess he would take a Headless Horseman out pretty quickly. Chernobog's a formidable foe. I'm not sure who's going to be more powerful. There's a couple I think that can go up against him.
If with him you start thinking power, right? You're like, where other ones we might think cunning or iconic, with him this is all about power.
Yeah. And a lot of these villains you don't even really know the scope of their power. Like even Jafar, you don't really know how powerful he was, because you don't really see him become ultimately powerful till he gets turned into a genie himself, and then but you don't really know the full extent even of any of these guys' power.
Yeah,
you only get to see a glimpse.
The only reason I might lean towards Headless Horseman is because he is kind of iconic, in the part. He's there a lot more and kind of the center of that. That
Chernobog makes appearances in parades too.
Yeah.
I mean, he shows up on floats as a figure. I mean, But man, can you imagine if they built a villain's land with a mountain and he opens his wing? How scary that would be! Just how freaky that would be to look at.
Yeah,
I love them both. I'm for just power. I got to go with Chernobog.
I think I'm gonna put Chernobog through as well. Like I don't know how I can. I'm with you. I'm trying to make a case for Headless Horseman, but I can't do it.
I'll give you another case for Chernobog. Is that you really don't know if the Headless Horseman is scary or he's just Brom Bones in disguise trying to scare Ichabod. Like, the movie kind of gives you the impression that it's really just a prank, and it's really just a guy dressed up with a pumpkin trying to scare. But Chernobog is 100%. No, he's supposed to be real.
Nobody's dressing up as Chernobog trying to scare anybody. No, I'm
point.
also voting through Chernobog. Yeah, I'm voting for Chernobog for sure.
All right. Well, moving through.
Right along. Here we go. Next one.
He's a beast.
He is. Next one here, we've got our 6 going up against our 15. This is Scar versus the Horned King.
This is a tough one because Scar is a much better, more iconic villain who's loved. I mean, people love Scar. I mean, they love Scar as a villain. But I do think that the Horned King is scarier and more terrifying and more powerful. And I do think that they had to tone him down in the 80s. That was really, it gave him a PG rating when movies didn't have PG ratings for family movies. So I mean, he's basically undead. I really don't know what you'd call him. He's a skull. He doesn't even have flesh. So
He's kind of like Skeletor.
Yeah.
He-Man.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie never gives. I'm sure in the books it gives more. Who the Horn King is and what his backstory is, but the movie doesn't give you any of that. So, Scar is just so iconic. I mean, one of the biggest movie franchises of all. I mean, with the Lion King. But I'm going to go ahead because I like going first, and I'm going to say the Horned King because I just think he's very terrifying. But that's a very hard one because Scar is so iconic.
I'm looking at his villain, the wiki on him, and he is a physical appearance is a creature with green rotting flesh, 2 gnarled horns, from which he earns his name. It's debatable whether he was undead or living. But they think he has a digestive tract because at one point he served wine.
Oh, that's right.
And then his likes are becoming a god, power, killing other beings, his dragons, and making his servants suffer. His dislikes are his plans failing and creepers' incompetence. His powers and abilities are powerfully magical abilities, control of an army of deathless warriors, and ability to use the Black Cauldron. I am going to also agree with you and say the Horned King. I love Scar. I think Scar is more kind of like Ursula. He's conniving, right? He's trying to extract something and leveraging, and it's very, very diabolical, right? And he's also murderous as well, but more in a comic, kind of. I don't know which is more sinister. This guy's just more pure evil, kind of like Chernobog. And I think the Chernobog Horned King matchup's going to be something.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going Horned King.
That is going to be something. Well, I don't think I can let Scar not get a single vote on this. So I'm going to vote for Scar.
I'm glad he gets a vote. He deserves it. He's more iconic too.
I think from that just is coming from I'm more nostalgic for Scar personally.
I understand. And a Jafar and Scar matchup later on down would have been something too.
That would have been tough too.
Those are two huge villains.
Yeah, I only just saw Black Cauldron.
But nevertheless.
Yeah, I only just saw Black Cauldron for the first time in like December.
And what'd you think?
I thought it was very fine. I thought it was perfectly fine. It wasn't bad.
When you watch the documentaries that, what's the name of it? I think it's called Waking Sleeping Beauty, where it's talking about the history where Eisner and Katzenberg are coming in and they're just trying to rip everything up because they think everything's so mediocre. But I do think when you watch that, then you go back and see a movie like that, you go, oh, this movie has so many chefs in the kitchen. Like it feels cut and pasted and things. It's just has some really good moments, but it has some. It definitely has some continuity and just focus issues. But to a generation that I do remember going to see it and being just shocked at how dark it was compared to anything that of Disney you had ever seen at that point, and how much scarier it was. And so anyway. I don't have huge nostalgia for it, but I do think the Horn King is pretty scary.
Yeah, for sure. You ready for the next matchup?
Let's do it. Let's move it. Let's do it.
We're on to our
All
we're
right.
gonna put our 8 seed up against our 5 seed here. We got Mother Gothel, and she's going up against Oogie Boogie.
If you're going looks alone, I pick Oogie Boogie. But I do think there's something to Mother Gothel that the whole child abduction, using the girl's whatever for her own youth and beauty. I'm going Mother Gothel is a much worse villain.
Well, we talked about this. I think two of the most brutal moments in Disney moments are Mother Gothel to Rapunzel and Frollo to Quasimodo, where they say the things like, "I'm the only one you can trust because you're an ugly, horrible little person."
Yeah,
It's like, "I love you because you're unlovable." It's crazy.
I'm all you got.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
Psychological.
I think that's why it was. Those two are so terrifying because they're psychologically terrorizing. So for that, yes, she wins. She's scarier on a whole different level than Oogie Boogie. It's something from your nightmares that you make up in your head, but she's very real, very real.
Like you said, exactly like that, is psychologically twisting things to manipulate and to shape the mind of a child to where they're, you're distorting what love really is to a sinister purpose is maybe the worst evil of all. So I'm Mother Goth. I agree. I think Oogie Boogie looks scarier, but sometimes the most scary is the thing that doesn't look so bad on the surface.
Right.
After listening to you both, I'm gonna vote for Mother Gothel, and also for a continuity standpoint. Earlier I put my vote for Ursula for being that manipulative kind of character, telling someone one thing, using someone against their self, really. And this is kind of what is going on with Mother Gothel in that same kind of vein. So for that reason, my vote goes to Mother Gothel.
There we
Mother
go.
Gothel moving on to the Elite Eight. Next matchup.
Next matchup here is our 3 versus our 7. This is Syndrome up against Maleficent. Now let me go ahead and say I vote for Syndrome.
Ooh.
I vote for Syndrome.
Is this your favorite movie of all? Your favorite Pixar movie?
It's my favorite Pixar movie of all time. The reason I'm voting for Syndrome
Oh, he's so good.
is because I think both of you are going to vote for Maleficent, and that's fine.
I tell you one thing that I really like. One of my things I think is so good about Syndrome as a character is he's unlikable. Like I don't ever like him. Like he's that arrogant little pest, even as a kid. I mean,
Entitled. Yeah.
and then he's that way
Spoiled.
older. I mean, it's like, gosh, do you never really go, oh god, like, I mean, you like him because he's so bad, but you don't ever really. A lot of these characters have little chinks where you go, gosh, that character's so funny. But he's just bad.
Yeah.
He is bad.
He's bad, and he's very powerful because he's smart. Like he's created all this power with technology, which is.
Evil Tony Stark.
Yeah.
He's like, there's nobody like him actually in his power of what he has, and he can take out many of the villains by far because he would be more powerful. But in this case, he's up against the mistress of all evil,
It's true.
who can turn herself into a dragon. So I am going to go old school on this one, and I'm going to pick Maleficent, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, there is a, you can kind of see the humanity and Syndrome in The Incredibles, in that
Yeah.
he's kind of this kid who gets thrown to the side. Like, you kind of see how not to deal with your traumas and your insecurities, because he goes through and starts like destroying villains or destroying heroes. But you kind of see this humanity of, man, this guy that I looked up to talked down to me and disrespected me. And now the only reason he respects me is because I'm a threat to him. And he kind of has this kind of like really negative view on not even just heroes, but the world in general, that he thinks he can fix it by being the only hero to exist.
Yeah, I think
So
I
there
think
you go.
on the next episode of Making a Superhero Murderer, Easton will discuss. It's good. It's really good. But I'm still voting Maleficent.
I know you are. I tried.
I do. I love Syndrome. He's a great bad guy, and I'm like David. Like, there's nothing really good about him. Like, he's a spoiled, entitled little kid who, when he gets spurned, there's no like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be like this anymore. Like, I'm a big proponent of like kids who are like that. They get a dose of the real world, and that's what changes them. That does not change Syndrome. It makes him worse.
Yeah.
Right? Syndrome does not learn his lesson. He digs down deeper into his selfishness. And so I completely agree on that analysis with Syndrome. However, Maleficent is evil. And for that reason, and I actually do think, I think Syndrome is dealing with technology. I think Maleficent could take out Syndrome in a fight. And I'm voting for Maleficent.
Well, that makes total sense. You're not out of line. I just made the biggest case that I could.
That was great, and a great case it was. And honestly, had Syndrome been in another bracket, maybe even in the next bracket we're about to do, I may have voted him onto the Elite Eight. So let's move on to that.
Here it comes. Ready?
We've got 2 more in the 16 here.
That's true.
Yeah.
Last 2 of the 16, we've got our 9 against our 12, which is our crazy matchup that we talked a little bit about last week. We have Sean Yu going up against Chick Hicks.
Yeah, this is. I mean, come on, guys. This one's easy, right?
It is for me.
Yeah. I think
Is anybody gonna make the Chick Hicks case?
I'm not.
Chick Hicks is a Cinderella that has met their match, and now they're gonna get destroyed in this round. Chick Hicks is not going further. Yeah, it's Sean Yu for sure.
Sean Yu has scarier eyes.
There you go. I'm not sure Chick Hicks has killed anyone ever. So
this next matchup is like Scarred and the Horn King to me in a way.
Last matchup of the Sweet 16. Here we've got our 11 versus our 10. This is Captain Hook versus Hades.
Both of these characters are very iconic, and they're both very popular in merchandise, in villains merchandise. They're both sellers. If they do a villain series in anything, they're both probably going to pop up. So that's popularity wise, that's tough. Captain Hook is one of my very favorites. I just just a lot of nostalgia there. But Hades, I think, would obviously take Captain Hook in a heartbeat. There's just really not much. Captain Hook is a coward, down deep. So I'm gonna have, as much as I love Captain Hook, I'm gonna have to go with Hades. And Hades is a great villain too. Captain Hook is one of my favorites. But I'm gonna have to go with Hades.
Yeah, they're both very much like the comedic villain that you really like more than you dislike.
But Hades is a god, and he is hugely powerful. Like, again, he's in that he can go up against Chernobog. Captain Hook doesn't have a chance.
There are those fan theories that Captain Hook is actually the good guy.
But everybody, all these stories, Maleficent is the good guy. Like she's the mistreated. Their backstory. Everybody's been just about rewritten that.
Yeah, I think though I'm with Hades. Hades for sure. I love Captain Hook, and it's hard not to put these iconic like Scar and Captain Hook in. But I do think Hades wins this particular matchup.
Yeah, I agree. For all those same reasons, I'm also voting for Hades.
Dude, our Elite Eight has got some real evil in it, man.
Yes, it does.
I think it's gonna be great. Hey, so why don't we do this? We're over our normal time already, so let's stop it here. We now have the Elite Eight. Our next episode, we will finish and crown a champion of this bracket. Does that sound good to you guys?
That sounds like a good idea.
That does
Hey,
sound good.
recap to us, Easton. Who is in the Elite Eight?
So our Elite Eight. All right, we have Jafar. He's going to go up against the Evil Queen. Next in our Elite Eight, we've got Chernabog versus the Horned King. And then we're going to... That's going to be a tough one. And then we're going to get Mother Gothel going up against Maleficent.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, we're going to have Shan Yu going up against Hades.
Some bad guys, man. Some bad dudes and ladies in here.
Bad villains in this list.
Well, I cannot wait. Hey, Easton, will you also in the show notes add the updated bracket so that people can follow along? We'd also love it if you would let us know where you agree or disagree on your bracket. Who is in your Elite Eight of all-time Disney villains? And get back with us. Leave us a review, if you would, preferably a 5-star one, at Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today at the Why I Love Disney podcast. On behalf of Easton and David, until next time, so long, farewell.